You are looking at a 2021 Porsche Panamera. And it's just a Panamera. It's not the S, it's not a turbo, it's not a hybrid. This is actually the base model, even though there's very little base about this car, especially its price. And that brings us to an interesting question. If you're in the market for luxurious executive transportation, but you don't want to break the bank, should you be thinking Porsche? Let's find out. When Porsche first introduced the Panamera over a decade ago, it was rather novel because not only for the first time did you have a legitimate sporty alternative to something like the Mercedes-Benz S-Class, but because it had a hatchback, you had a huge degree of utility as well. It was new for 2010. The second generation Panamera came out in 2017. 4 years later, for 2021, it has been refreshed. And the Panamera has been a big success for Porsche. Other manufacturers have taken note, and a lot of them have jumped headfirst into this segment. And it is an interesting segment, primarily for one reason, and that's it's hugely lucrative because not only are the base prices high, but you start adding options and bigger motors and bigger hybrid systems, and the prices go through the roof. There is over a $100,000 price delta between the base Panamera here and the top of the line model. So what is the base Panamera competing with? Today, we're going to be talking about the Audi A7, the BMW 840i Gran Coupe, and the new kid on the block, the Mercedes AMG GT43. Before we get to the competition, let me tell you a little story about an architecture tour I once took of Paris. Bear with me, it pays off, I promise. So the guide, he started us off looking at the Eiffel Tower, an obvious choice, but his point was, like it or not, every building in Paris has to answer to the Eiffel Tower. They have to acknowledge that it exists. Now, I happened to be in Berlin back in 2017 when Porsche launched the new Panamera, and I happened to be sitting down with the head of Porsche design, Michael Maurer, and I said to him, hey, just like the Eiffel Tower in Paris, does every Porsche now have to answer to the 911? And he looked at me as if he was gonna punch me, but at the time he answered, yes, yes it does. And I really think that the Panamera, especially the second gen, looks like a bigger, heftier 911. Now, it didn't always used to be the case. Remember there was Porsches like the 914, there was a 928. They didn't look anything like the 911 because they weren't anything like the 911. They weren't rear engine, they were mid-engined or front engined or just different. But here they've made this look like a big 911. Coming down the side of the vehicle, I like this a lot right here, the big dash to axle ratio, beautiful, beautiful surfacing, and then you've got this nice sloping roof line. If you remember the original Panamera, right, the roof was up here. I asked Maurer in that same conversation, when did you start working on this roof line? And he said, the day the original car launched. Coming out back, pure Porsche. I mean, this looks exactly like an extra large 911. That is my problem with the Panamera design. There's nothing to critique in terms of surfacing or line work. Porsche, they are masters of shaping metal. I just don't know, why does this four-door luxury machine have to look like the 911? The mimicking of the 911 continues inside, specifically right here with what's in front of me. We have the 5 circular gauges, just like a 911, and just like the new 911, the 992, most of them are virtual. The center tachometer remains analog. I love that. I wish they were all analog. Perhaps that's just me. It's also a 911-like steering wheel. It's a very good-looking cabin. I like the contrasting of the 2 different tones, and there's a whole bunch of different options you can pick from. One thing though is, this steering wheel here is covered in nice leather and I'm sitting on nice leather, and this shifter has nice leather, and that's not leather. And I don't think this is leather either. And over here, it's not leather. And again, if you're a vegan and you don't want leather, hey, that's great. But again, at this price point, kind of inexcusable. And we'll get to the specific price in a bit, but like, an Alfa Romeo Giulia, let's say, half the price has really nice leather everywhere. Another thing, back to the dollars, there's a lot of blanks right here. What's a blank? Well, that means if you were to pay for more options, you'd have more things to push. Porsche is actually solving this by converting this whole lower section to touchscreens on their newer stuff, like the Taycan, for instance, and therefore the base model Taycan looks just like the fully optioned super expensive one. Here, for all the time that you own the Panamera, you're going to say, if only I'd spent a little bit more. However, speaking of things to push, this nav screen, it is fantastic. It's a great size. It's bright. It's super legible. It's so quick. Porsche's just done a great job. Everything works. I really, really dig this. Then we get to actual space, and this is where the Panamera shines. It is big in here. It is nearly a full-size vehicle. Kind of splits the difference between mid-size and full-size. Tons of room in the rear seat. And even though they made the roofline slope more, they actually lowered the rear seat, so there's just as much headroom. And because it's a hatchback, if you fold down the rear seats, you have tons of space. Can you stick a couple of beer kegs back there standing up? Yes. Yes, you can. As far as performance goes, you should know that this platform is capable of wondrous things. First of all, this actually underpins the Bentley Continental GT, an incredible car. The Turbo S version of the Panamera has to be the best handling four-door on the market, and if it isn't, it's tied with the large version of the AMG GT four-door. As for the base model, no, it's not like those. It's pretty good, but there's just not a ton of power because under the hood, you have a new 2.9-liter twin-turbo V6 that makes 325 horsepower, 331 pound-feet of torque. Modest numbers for a Porsche, and remember, these are pretty heavy. Now, the power it does make, it goes into Porsche's 8-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission. They call it PDK, and because this is a Panamera, not a Panamera 4, it hits only the rear wheels. On this particular model, it also comes with rear steer, which actually does help out with the handling, as does the fact that because there is no all-wheel drive hardware here, it means there's less weight on the nose, there's less encumbering the front wheels. This thing actually handles very sweet, especially for a base model. Acceleration, obviously not as fast as the big dogs, but Porsche somehow always finds a way, and this car is quick enough. One place that's kind of is efficiency. Again, it's a large car, 18 miles per gallon around town, 24 miles per gallon on the highway. When it comes to safety, we don't know because nobody has crash tested a Porsche Panamera, believe it or not. We do know that as far as standard active safety features go, there aren't many. Really, it's got lane keeping assist and traffic sign recognition. However, if you reach back into your wallet, you can get all kinds of safety features, including night vision assist and an adaptive cruise control system that's so smart, it actually uses GPS data to control the vehicle's speed. How much? Okay, just like water is wet, Porsches ain't cheap, and that means that the base Panamera can be yours for $88,550. That said, this particular one next to me, which is still the base model, is over $105,000. But what about the competition? Okay, BMW is $3,000 less. The Mercedes AMG is $2,000 more. If you are bargain hunting in this segment, think Audi, because that A7 starts at $69,200, which is almost $20,000 less than the Panamera. That said, the Panamera is pretty good. If there's one thing I want you to know about the refreshed 2021 Porsche Panamera, it's that even as a rather pricey base model, there is a lot to love here. And that's what premium cars are all about, right? The way they make you feel. It's not something you need, it's something you want, it's something you desire. Sure, there are cheaper alternatives and you can save a few bucks, but I don't think they're gonna make you feel as good. Also, I don't think they are as good of a car. Now, what about that one car that costs even more? That AMG is pretty sweet. To see vehicle rankings and a complete buyer's guide, please visit motortrend.com/cars.